Every year, the kids in town would make their way down Oak Street on Halloween night, eager to hit all the houses known for handing out the best candy. But there was one house they always skipped, the last house at the very end of the street. It was old, dilapidated, and surrounded by a rusted iron fence. The yard was overgrown, and the windows were always dark, no matter the season. The adults never talked about the house, and when anyone asked, they just changed the subject. But on Halloween night, kids whispered rumors. Some said a witch lived there, others said it was haunted by the ghosts of people who'd gone missing over the years. No one knew for sure, because no one was brave enough to knock on the door. Except for Danny and his friends. That Halloween, Danny, Olivia, and Jake were determined to break the curse. They were 12 now, too old to be scared by ghost stories. They'd already hit all the other houses, their pillowcases bulging with candy, but as they reached the end of Oak Street, Danny turned to his friends. "Let's go to the last house." Olivia hesitated, glancing at the old house in the distance. "You know no one goes there, Danny. It's not safe." "That's just what people say to scare you," Danny said, his grin mischievous. "What if they give out king-size candy bars? Think about it. No one ever goes there, so they must have tons left." Jake snorted. "You're out of your mind. But what if they do?" Despite their better judgment, curiosity got the better of them. The three of them walked slowly down the dark street, the wind picking up, sending dead leaves skittering across the cracked pavement. The house loomed before them, its broken windows reflecting the dim light of the moon. The gate creaked as Danny pushed it open, and the three friends walked up the overgrown path toward the front door. A single jack-o'-lantern sat on the porch, its grin twisted and sinister, as if daring them to come closer. "Okay, we knock. Get the candy and run," Danny said, his voice low. Olivia nodded, swallowing hard. "Let's just get it over with." They stood at the door, staring at the peeling paint and the iron knocker shaped like a twisted, grinning face. Danny hesitated for a moment, then grabbed the knocker and banged it against the door. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, from deep within the house, they heard footsteps. Heavy, deliberate footsteps, growing closer. The door creaked open, and the kids held their breath. A figure stood in the doorway, cloaked in shadows. It was tall, hunched, its face hidden beneath the brim of an old, tattered hat. Its eyes, pale and unblinking, glinted in the moonlight. "Trick or treat," Danny said, his voice faltering. The figure didn't respond. Instead, it slowly extended a hand, holding out 3 wrapped candies. The kids exchanged nervous glances, but their curiosity overpowered their fear. One by one, they reached out and took the candy. "Thank you," Olivia whispered. The figure said nothing. It just stood there, staring, its eyes unblinking, its breath slow and raspy. After a long, tense moment, the door slowly creaked shut. Without a word, the kids turned and bolted down the path, not stopping until they were back on the street. They panted, hearts racing, looking back at the house in disbelief. "That was freaky," Jake said, laughing nervously. "But hey, we survived." Danny grinned. "See? Nothing to be scared of." Olivia wasn't so sure. The way the figure had looked at them, it didn't feel right. But she pushed the thought aside as they made their way home, already planning to brag to the other kids at school the next day. Later that night, as Danny lay in bed, he pulled out the candy from the last house, examining the wrappers. They were old, faded, with strange symbols etched into the paper. He shrugged, unwrapped one, and popped it into his mouth. It tasted bitter, metallic, but before he could spit it out, his vision blurred. His body went cold, his muscles locking up. He tried to move, but he couldn't. He was completely paralyzed. In his room, the shadows deepened. The darkness seemed to move, swirling in the corners of the room. From the blackness, the figure from the house on Oak Street emerged, its eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Danny tried to scream, but no sound came. The figure loomed over him, leaning closer, its breath cold against his skin. "Welcome," it whispered, its voice like the rustling of dead leaves. "Now you belong to me." At the same time, Olivia and Jake lay paralyzed in their beds, the same darkness creeping into their rooms, the same figure visiting them in the night. The next morning, their beds were empty. The candy wrappers were gone. And the house at the end of Oak Street stood silent, waiting for the next brave souls to knock on its door.